What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish up our talks on the Order of the Scribes Wizard, the one that can, you can do a lot of different things with this. Among those, changing a bunch of types of damage, you can kind of be in two places at once. There's a lot of really cool stuff, but today we get to apply that to an actual build, and I am very much looking forward to that. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. We are about 20-ish subscribers from our goal of 5,000, so we are super close. So please help me to reach that goal. We're really close. And then of course I'm going to be working on a 5,000 subscriber special, and we're gonna have a good time with that. So yeah, today we're going to be building one of these wizards, and I am very much looking forward to this. This is probably my favorite wizard, at least of the ones that I have played. I have played this one a couple of times, actually. It's kind of my go-to when it comes to wizards, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Being able to basically transmute spell all the time is really nice, especially when you are in certain parts of a campaign. Maybe you are in a fiery part of a campaign and everything's immune to fire damage, but you still want a fireball. Now you can lightning ball or something different, which is pretty cool. And so we're going to be taking a little bit more of a generic approach today, just so that it is more applicable to more situations. Now there are some kind of specialty builds that you can do with this, especially around things like bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. We will not be doing that today just because there's a lot of restrictions on it too, and a lot of times it ends up falling flat. So I'm not doing that. However, we will be talking about it in our honorable mentions at the very end. So of course, make sure to stick around for that. So without any further ado, let's jump into this build. As always, we start off with our rules for the series, and that will be right there for you to check out. If anything at your table looks a little bit different than this, then you may need to make some adjustments. So for our race, we of course always start here, and I haven't taken this race in a very long time, mainly because it got nerfed in the Mordenkainen's book, and so I've kind of been a little bit shaky about taking it, but it's still, honestly, it's still a great race, and I can't really knock it. It's the Goblin. We're going with Goblin this time around. I love the idea of a Goblin Wizard. I think that that's a ton of fun just thematically, but there's a lot of really good stuff. Goblin is a really good race, honestly. We get Dark Vision, great, of course. Not everybody gets that. Fey Ancestry, a really good feature. And then we get Fury of the Small. Of course, Fury of the Small got nerfed pretty hard going into the Mordenkainen's book. It used to be extra damage equal to your level. Now it's equal to your proficiency bonus, but you get to do it more times this time around. So technically the overall total damage is going to usually be a little bit better, but it's ultimately nerfed as far as how much you can do in one big burst, and I think that that's really what people were looking for, your rogues and that kind of thing that are looking for one massive hit in one go. For this, it's not as big of a deal. We also get Nimble Escape, and that's really the main reason why we're here, is to be able to have those bonus action mobility options. That really helps out a wizard. Now, of course, we have things like Misty Step and that kind of thing, but Misty Step costs us a spell slot, and so if we can get out of there freely, I'd rather use that and save my spell slots for other very important things. And so this is going to free that up. So I like having that mobility option, which is really cool. For our stats, of course, modified standard array like what you saw at the beginning. So we're going to put our top stat in intelligence, second in constitution, third in dex, next in wisdom, and then strength and charisma. Of course, charisma and strength are interchangeable down there at the bottom. It really doesn't matter. But yeah, go in this same order. And then we get either a +2 and a +1 or 3 +1s as of the Mordenkainen's book. I'm going to do +2 +1 like I've been doing for most of these wizards. And so we're going to put the +2 in intelligence, +1 in dexterity, leaving an odd intelligence and constitution, and we will of course shore that up in just a little bit. For equipment, we really don't need a whole lot. Of course, there are always options for multi-classing, and we will talk about that at the very end. But again, we're going 20 levels of Wizard this week once again. There are great ways to multi-class the Wizard, and I know that we haven't done it a whole lot. I normally do it a ton in this series, but I just don't think that the Wizard operates the same as a lot of your other classes do in kind of needing it. So to me, if it doesn't need it, I'm not gonna do it. So we're just gonna go 20 levels on Wizard, and with that, we don't really need anything on our equipment list. We don't need armor because we can't use it. We don't really need anything besides a way to cast our spells, and that's really about it. So that's what we're gonna do. At level 1, we're gonna be a Wizard 1, and of course we get spellcasting and arcane recovery. If you have any questions about how the general Wizard works, of course that is up in the icard above for you to check out right there. But ultimately we get arcane recovery, get back some spell slots, which is good, and our spellcasting of course gives us some awesome spells. Top cantrips here are going to be Firebolt and Prestidigitation. Of course you cannot transmute any cantrips, so Firebolt is Firebolt. You can't make that anything else. Again, if you want to Toll the Dead, it's going to be the same type of damage. We can't change that, unfortunately. But first level spells, we can. And for this, we have a few different options. Of course, Shield and Silvery Barbs, can't leave home without that. Then for the next option, I would take one or the other of one of these. Either Chromatic Orb or Absorb Elements. Chromatic Orb and Absorb Elements both give you access to a lot of different types of damage, which is really, really good. And of course, we can use those to change the damage type of something like Burning Hands or even Magic Missile if we don't want force damage for some weird reason. But for me, Burning Hands is one of the best first level spells we can grab here, just because it is a really nice AoE type of thing. But fire isn't always the best type. There's a lot of creatures that are resistant or immune to fire, and so now we can turn that into force with Magic Missile or a laundry list of others with Chromatic Orb or Absorb Elements, and so we can try to get around some of those nasty resistances. At Wizard 2, we get Wizardly Quill and Awakened Spellbook. Now, if you have any questions about how the Scribes Wizard specifically works, that will be up in the icard above. We talked about that earlier this week. This is cool. Wizardly Quill, of course, gives us a little quill friend that can write things down, erase things, and ultimately takes our cost quite a bit down when it comes to getting spells in, and not so much monetarily, but in time. It takes a lot less time to write down these spells, down to 2 minutes per level, which is really good rather than an hour. So really saves you time and can help you get stuff in your book a lot faster, which is really good. And of course, Awakened Spellbook is here as well. So this allows you to get your book back easier if you were to somehow lose it or anything like that. And of course, you can use this as your spellcasting focus, so you don't need a wand, you don't need components for anything, as long as they're not costly components anyway. And so that's really cool. I really like that flavor piece there, and it helps. It helps out mechanically as well. For Wizard 3, we get cantrip formulas back from Natasha's book, which is cool. If you grab a cantrip that you don't want and you don't need it anymore, you can swap that out for something else. We also get second level spells here. Misty Step is one that I would probably grab, but you may not need it just because we have Nimble Escape here. To me, I would have it in the back pocket just in case we need to get out of a sticky situation and we're afraid that we can't get far enough with a disengage, but it's there just as a backup option. Web is also a good thing just for the opposite effect. So instead of helping us get away, we can stick people in a certain place. So I like that. As far as your spells that offer a ton of different damage types, we're not as expansive of a list here as some of the other levels here. First level, of course, is probably your best as far as having multiple options that do this. Second level, I would probably focus more on web, and then we're going to get some more options a little bit later on. At Wizard 4, we of course get our first ASI or feat, and I'm grabbing Warcaster. Surprising probably no one. Warcaster is fantastic for wizards. We are going to be concentrating on one of several different spells that are really good. One one of which we're getting next level. And so that's really great, of course, helping us to maintain that concentration. It also is going to allow us to use any kind of spells we want to hit with an opportunity attack, which is great. All of those things are absolutely fantastic. Wizard 5, we get no features, but we get 3rd level spells. Counterspell, Hypnotic Pattern are, the ones you can't leave home without. Now, some interesting ones that I would consider grabbing here. Spirit Shroud. Spirit Shroud is normally not one that I would recommend for a wizard, just because it is one that deals damage when people are near you, and you typically don't want people near you. But it's good because it offers us a few different damage types here. Even if you never cast it, we have 3 different types, which is really cool. Then you've also got, of course, Fireball and Lightning Bolt, depending on if you need a huge circle or a big old line. Either one of those is great, and of course we can switch that out. And so that's 5 damage types right there and 3 spells. Really good value here at 3rd level. And so you're likely going to find at least one of them that goes unresisted in whatever fight you're going for, which is really cool. Wizard 6, this one is great. Manifest Mind. This basically gives us a little drone that people cannot get rid of unless it's a dispel magic kind of thing, and it allows you to fly it around and then cast spells from it or even see through it, which is really good. It cannot phase through walls, but besides that, it can go about anywhere as long as it doesn't get too far from you, and I really, really like this feature. We're going to talk about this a little bit more at Wizard 7 when we get no features, but we get 4th level spells. We get, of course, Polymorph, your normal stuff. Storm Sphere is cool because it offers 2 different damage types there. Ice Storm, of course. And one that I wanted to mention as being an interesting one is some of the summon spells. Now, of course, there were all the conjure spells that came earlier, and a lot of those are either really broken, like with Conjure Animals, or dumb, and the rules don't work well. The summon spells are a lot better balanced, in my opinion, and so there might be a reason to take this, actually. Now, we're not anywhere near as good in summoning as something like the Necromancy Wizard, which we talked about recently. I'll put that up in the icon above. But one thing we can do is not have to worry about friendly fire. And so you can fly your little drone into a room around a corner, and you stay way out of sight, and just drop whatever it is you want to summon and just let that wreak havoc, which I think is really funny. Just out of nowhere, the enemy just sees this little floating orb. They're like, okay, this is weird. What's going on with that? And then just Greater Demon at some point, not at 4th level, but Greater Demon, whatever you want to throw in there. Of course, you've got lesser demons here, so you could do that. But there's plenty of options that you could do as far as just dropping a random bit of chaos in there to soften up whatever it is you want to do. Yeah, really cool. I like that a lot. Again, this feature can be potentially game breaking because it's really good for scouting. There's almost no risk on it. You don't even have to worry about, normally you would use like a familiar. You don't have to worry about the familiar dying because nothing is going to be able to just smack it out of the sky, right? So it's really good in that way. So really cool stuff. At Wizard 8, we get our next ASI or feat, and I'm taking one that I haven't taken in a very long time. I know that a lot of my wizards, I've been putting telekinetic here, and I still would recommend that, and we can talk about that more at the very end. But to me, again, having a drone that I can fly around and do all of these things, I'm going to go with Observant. Now, I normally don't recommend this feat, and it's probably not the most overpowered thing out there. However, this can definitely come up, which is really cool, especially having your drone. You can fly this around and start reading lips of random NPCs, which can be really good. You can see things a lot better through this drone, which is really cool. And I think overall this is actually really cool and actually works really well with our ability to see through this and be able to pick up information. I think it's a little easier in some situations, depending on lighting and that kind of thing. It might be a little easier to get your little drone in there and to see what's going on than it would be for you to go in there and ultimately fail a stealth check. So I think that is a really cool option, and that is what we are going to go for today. Of course, that's going to give us that bump in intelligence we want as well. At Wizard 9, we get no features, but we get 5th level spells. spells. Wall of Force, duh. Then we've also got your damaging spells, things like Cloud Kill, Cone of Cold, and Synaptic Static, being able to swap around those damage types as we need to, and of course taking advantage of the secondary effects, and that is really what we focus on. And that's why I really like this subclass, is because we can take these spells like Synaptic Static that focus on, you know, an intelligence saving throw, which is really nasty for most creatures because a lot of them don't have great intelligence saving throws. And so you can target that and maybe make it cold damage, right? And that can be really cool depending on what you're going for. Now, Synaptic Static is one that I probably wouldn't be transforming a whole lot, but who knows? Maybe you'll run into some Mind Flayers and need to change some things up, and this gives you that option, which is really, really good. At Wizard 10, we get Master Scrivener, which is really good. I like this feature a lot. It's not busted, it's not crazy or anything, but it is nice, and it comes at a really good time in the build as well, which is good. At Wizard 11, no features, but we do get 6th level spells. We get things like Chain Lightning, Circle of Death, Wall of Ice. Wall of Ice is cool just because it comes with a lot of really cool effects, but then you could change it to lightning, or you could change it to something else with Circle of Death, which is cool. I like that. Again, we're focusing more on the secondary effects here, and then we can change the damage type out as much as we want, as long as we have that in our book of the same level. Now, one thing to be careful of is if you were to upcast something like Burning Hands to, let's say, 3rd level, right? You can't take the Absorb Elements type of stuff with you. It has to match the level of spell of which you are using a slot. So that is one thing to keep in mind here, is I've seen some people like, oh, I can just use Burning Hands, upcast that, and then use it for acid damage because I have Chromatic Orb. No, you cannot do that. It has to be matching with a type of damage that is in the book that is of the level of spell that you are casting it at. So one little distinction to be careful of there in case you run into that. At Wizard 12, we get our next ASI or feat, and we're going with Resilient Constitution. This, of course, is going to bump up our health, which is great. We, of course, are also going to be better at concentrating on spells, which is great. Just all around, really, really good to have that. I love that. Then Wizard 13, we get no features, but we get 7th level spells. Prismatic Spray. Come on, right? And I would honestly just take Prismatic Spray here and upcast other things up to use it, at least ones that get a benefit from upcasting, just because Prismatic Spray gives you so many options. I like that a lot. Of course, you can cast Prismatic Spray all you want, but of course having it and giving you all of those options is really, really handy. And so I would upcast like my Cloud Kills or my Cone of Colds or whatever, and then use one of my laundry list of damage types there to go with something else, which is cool. Wizard 14, we get one with the Word, which is good. It's a nice defensive feature that can keep you from dying, which is great. Now, of course, there is a possible downside to this because it does remove spells from your book, but at the same time, somebody pointed this out in the comments section, which I thought was really cool, is that your DM, knowing that you are a Scrivener and you are a nerd, might be even more inclined to give you spell scrolls and other spell books than with other wizards. And that's probably mostly true as long as you have a somewhat generous DM, or at least one that's half paying attention. I think that is most likely to be true, which I think is good. But yeah, you definitely want to have as many spells in your book as possible before using this feature, just because you want to be able to burn some bad spells. Remember, the spell has to be in your book to transmute a spell into that damage type. So if you get rid of a spell that has that damage type, you can no longer use that. So be careful with what you get rid of. Even if it's a spell you're not going to cast, if it's something that you are using that damage type for, you can't use it again until after that 1d6 rests. So just be careful with that. That is something that I have seen of oh, it's out of my book, but I can still do. No, you can't. So that's one thing to be really, really careful of. Wizard 15, no features, but we do get 8th level spells. There's not a ton here that really work out for me. Incendiary Cloud, I guess, but even then, I'm really not a fan of Incendiary Cloud. I definitely like a lot of other spells better, but again, I would maybe use this and maybe upcast something to this. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of that spell, honestly. Wizard 16, we of course get another ASI or feat, and I'm just bumping Constitution. I don't think there's any reason to do anything differently than that, honestly. Wizard 17, we get no features, but we do get 9th level spells, and Prismatic Wall comes online, giving us even more options, similar to Prismatic Spray, which is great. And then we could use those options on Meteor Swarm if we can get a hold of both, which is really cool. So definitely an option that I like there. Wizard 18, Spell Mastery, so we get a 1st and 2nd level spell. I'm going to take what I always take here. I don't think there's any reason to change that up in Shield and Misty Step. Now, of course, with Nimble Escape being online here, maybe Misty Step is one that you would switch out for something different. Maybe you'd rather have Web there, or maybe there's another favorite 2nd level spell that you'd rather use. That's fine, but to me, I think Misty Step is fine, especially because it's free with this feature, which is good. Wizard 19, we get another ASIR feat, and of course, bumping Constitution once again. We want that to be as high as possible so that we can have as much health as possible, despite it being very limited, and of course to maintain concentration just a little bit easier. And finally, level 20, Wizard 20, we get signature spells, and I would go with Counterspell, and then again, Hypnotic Pattern is probably going to be my go-to there. Fireball, again, if you wanted to do that, I don't know, Spirit Shroud maybe, but to me, I just feel like Hypnotic Pattern is going to be the most useful of all of these things. But I mean, I guess Fireball is still Fireball, and if you wanted to go that route, it's there for you. So what do you think of the build? I know it's a little bit of a generic way to build this, but I do think that there are a lot of really cool options. And at the very end of this section, I'm going to talk about a specialty type of build that I almost went with to show that off, but ended up not doing it because I feel like it's a little too pigeonholed in some ways, and we'll get to that. For other racial options, of course, the gnome is going to be a top contender. The gnome is always going to be a good wizard. Of course, we get the advantage on all of those saving throws on the mental side, which is great. And it's just a great race all around, especially for a spellcaster. And then the turtle is another great one. Of course, having that natural armor is really good for somebody like us who tends to be a little bit squishy. And so if you would rather go with a little bit more defense than the nimbleness like what we did with the goblin, turtle is probably going to be one of your best options there. For other feat options, of course, Fey Touched is pretty much going to always be one on the list for wizards. Of course, giving us access to a couple spells here and the +1 to intelligence, which is always going to be a good thing. Next up, it's 3 of them in one, but Crusher, Slasher, and Piercer, all of those are going to work well, and you can have options up to, I believe, 5th level that give you access to a lot of these. And that can be cool. Of course, we can start shoving people around, at least in a limited way, with this. And I think that's neat. So we could, of course, have a bludgeon ball or something like that, which could be cool. There are options there. Dust Devil, of course, is one that would give you that option. And so then it would combine with this, which is cool. But you have to also make sure that you are using spells that require an attack roll rather than it being something that is a saving throw. That's why something like Eldritch Blast works with this, with like Dow Genie stuff, but you couldn't do it with something like Burning Hands or Fireball. Doesn't work that way, so you got to make sure that you take the right spells for that. And finally, Keen Mind. Now, this is one that I normally don't mention, and this is actually banned at my table. I ban Keen Mind because it's annoying. It's just the most annoying feat of all time. It's basically the I forgot IRL, but I'm gonna make the DM tell me because my character would remember. I don't like this feat personally, but here it is. It is technically legal. I would take this on this build if it is legal at your table, just because I think it helps a lot with that observer type of role. Again, you're going to see things that you probably shouldn't have seen, and I think that Keen Mind would help out a lot with that. So again, if it's allowed at your table, I think it works well here. And then for multi-classing options, Artificer, for obvious reasons. We get, of course, the Constitution saving throw proficiencies, we get armor proficiencies, we stay with intelligence, so our multi-classing fits really nicely, all that good stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff there. Not a whole lot to talk about. Sorcerer is another good one. Now, Sorcerer, of course, already has Transmuted Spell, but Sorcerer has access to a lot of different things and a lot of different ways that you can play this, and I think that it combines really, really well. And finally, we have a bit of a weird one, but I think this one's not I think this one's somewhat well known, is the Cleric. This one is really cool because you have both the Tempest or the Knowledge Cleric that kind of work well here. The Tempest Cleric, I think, is a little bit more well known just because you have the ability to transmute things here into lightning or thunder, and then of course you could maximize them with the Channel Divinity there, which could be really cool. So you could have a maximized lightning ball if you wanted to do that. So there are options there. I like that a lot. And Knowledge Cleric, of course, I'm not the biggest fan of the Knowledge Cleric. You can see that in my ranking that I did, but it does work well in this context, I think, and can work for this type of character. Generally, it's one I wouldn't recommend, but here I think it does some work really well. So that is our build for today and our video. We've only got 2 more weeks of 2014 stuff, and then we get to move on, which is great. We probably, depending on how the subscriber things go, we probably will throw the special somewhere in there in the meantime, and we'll go from there. And of course, yesterday we had a live stream going over season 6, all of the coaches for the UNPL Pokemon Draft League. So if that's something you're into, make sure to check that out. We'll have the draft reveal 1 week from yesterday, which is going to be a lot of fun as well. And then we start our regular battles after that, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a really good season. So until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.